Okay, so the main topic of tonight is the crazy idea, I should say, to launch a streaming app. So first, I'd like to excuse myself. I'm French. I'll try to keep the accent as neutral as possible and try to make it interesting tonight. Couple of words about myself. So I've actually started product management through consulting. So I did some 2 years of business consulting for companies such as Booking.com, where I was working on their A/B testing platform. And then went to product management. So I've been doing that for like 5 years in different countries and different companies. So I started in Prezi in San Francisco and decided to come back in the old continent in companies such like Asimo, which is a fintech, very much like TransferWise. And I've been now working at DAZN for about 2 years. DAZN, well, I'll present you DAZN a little bit later, but basically we're the new ESPN, or the Netflix of sports. How to launch a streaming industry. So I'll try to give you as many examples based on my experience that I've seen in these 2 years in DAZN. So I've launched DAZN in Italy, in the US, in Spain, and we're about to launch in Brazil next month. So I'll try to infuse as many funny facts from that experience and make it as interesting as possible. But the first thing is to start really with the insights. So what is the streaming industry? Some definitions, how streaming works. There are a lot of concepts around, and where most of the time people might just think of streaming as Netflix or Spotify. There is much more than that. And then I'll tell you how to launch a streaming app if you're still into it. And then I'll give you some best practices more around how a product manager is, so what is the day-to-day life for a product manager in the streaming industry. Some useful tips if you want to become the next Netflix or Spotify. So quick definition of the streaming. So I guess we have to start with the basics. What is streaming? So streaming media, so video or audio most of the time, is the content sent, so it has to be compressed and it's sent over the internet. And I'm pretty sure if you guys remember, a couple of years ago, we used to save, put them on the hard drive, pass them along, USB drive, put in a TV. Well, these days are gone because the streaming is basically the idea of a peer-to-peer transfer. So you send from a server to your TV, computer, iPhone, or whatever device directly. So it doesn't go, it's not saved into the hard drive. So long gone are these days where you had to sit passively on your sofa and you had to watch only a football match. Nowadays, you are actually the viewer. You choose actually what you want to choose. If you think about YouTube and Spotify, you are actually the person who decides on what you want to choose. And black and white, mono sounds. I mean, I don't even remember these days. The streaming is not like that. And actually, this is not streaming. Streaming requires internet. So this is a massive divergence. It's not the same thing as the traditional aerial TV that you see when you watch BBC One on your TV. This is not streaming. Streaming requires internet. So it's a Netflix. It requires a box. So I just want to make sure that everyone understands and don't confuse two things that are not the same thing. So now a quick question. So when I say streaming, what type of companies can you think of? Netflix? Now TV? Amazon? Great. Okay. Yeah. So that's. Oh yeah, Amazon. I have this one. Oh yeah, YouTube. Okay. So that's basically what I was expecting. That's the reality, that these few actors really trust the interest of streaming. But if you look at the real picture of what the streaming industry is, it's you have the devices. Well, you have the iPhone, the Android devices, the TVs, the laptops. You have the video players. On each device, it's a different one. You have the cloud. So where do you host your videos? On the Google Drive or AWS. You have the ads, because of course, as soon as there is money, ads is there. So you also have the DRMs to protect the intellectual properties, and so on. So you've got a lot of players actually that are doing the reality of what it is. When you as a product manager, when you launch a streaming app, you have to deal with all these guys, and it's a really complex world. It's not just Netflix, it's not just Apple Plus, or it's not just the new Disney Plus. It's a crazy lot of actors. And the controllers. I forgot these guys. But the reality is it's becoming complex for a reason. So last year, in 2016, Netflix has more subscribers and more content than all the linear channels, than all the providers in the US. Moving away from the TV. Like if you look at this graph, it clearly shows that we are young. We all have an iPhone or an Android phone. You tend to watch YouTube on your laptop in the morning or on the TV in the evening. We're mobile. It's complex. You don't just watch now on your TV. You on your TV sets the traditional information at 8 p.m. It's everywhere, and hence the complexity is growing and growing year after year. Also, it becomes more and more fragmented. So where a couple of years ago ESPN was the only player in streaming sport, now it's completely different. So ESPN has lost 13 million subscribers in a couple of years. Why? Well, mainly because people like so DAZN, my company, hopefully, we are growing and growing, and because now you have Sky Sports, you have BT Sports, you have beIN, and you have so many different players coming every week and every month in the streaming market, which makes it actually a really interesting world to be in right now, and a really exciting one. So yeah, so there is a clear shift in the market where users, yeah, exactly. So we are young. So let's say, where am I? Yeah, I'm between the 18 and 34. I barely use the TV anymore. Most of the time, I watch YouTube on my iPhone. Let's say I watch DAZN on my Apple TV and on my tablet. It's just just moving away. The trends is just moving away from the linear channels, up to a point where the streaming video, so just the video, not even the audio, is creating 70% of all the web traffic. So it's just a mind-blowing stats. Like 70% of all the World Wide Web is because, thanks, of the streaming video. A couple of weeks ago, actually, the latest episode of Game of Thrones came out, season 8, episode 1, whatever. I think the estimation was like only that episode and that same day accumulated more than 50% of the worldwide traffic. It's just it's crazy, like 50% of the worldwide traffic. Because streaming video is everywhere now. So you have, all of you, I'm pretty sure you have Instagram, the videos. This is streaming. Facebook, you have streaming videos. LinkedIn, like everywhere. Streaming video is literally everywhere nowadays. And you don't really even think about it. And if you add audio about it, well, I don't have the stats, but I'm pretty sure it's a lot. When it's getting so big, there are like technologies is moving really fast. Everyone's talking about the 5G. And 5G is going to be one of the big game changers tomorrow for streaming. And as long as all these like different type of technologies here, we'll get into the why they are so important later on. But it's really important to understand that product and technology is moving really, really fast. And even you start to have like politics in actually like getting into the streaming and understanding how important it is to improve the infrastructure of a country. I'll show you a use case of DAZN when we launched in Italy, where we actually broke the entire internet in Italy. And it just shows how important the politics also have to keep up with streaming and just the streaming industry, because the infrastructure have to cope with that. And you've got some really cool features. So I've launched a VR tennis match. So a couple of months ago for for tennis tournaments, we launched an entire VR experience where you could like watch the match with the set. Well, still like not commercializing type of product, but this is like really cool stuff coming. And if you think about hyper reality of esports, it's becoming really interesting, and the integration between streaming and all type of businesses where like betting and stuff like that, which seems like more natural. It's a booming world. Wow, I hate that slide. So how does it all work? So it might seem really easy. You just take a remote, you launch your app, and then boom, the playback works. You have your Game of Thrones episode. Well, actually, it's a headache for people like me on a day-to-day basis. I'll run you through that really quickly because I actually stole that from my architect in DAZN, and I'm not sure how to present that. But basically, to put it simple, so on the right side, you have, let's say, Japanese users. So, people in Japan with like either mobile, TV, or desktop, and they are interested in Bundesliga match. So they are going to go all the way back, and from Japan, they are going to request the Bundesliga game, so in Germany. So you have to think that like the start point of a streaming is actually the camera. It's like you have to film something. And this thing is located in Germany. Then it goes into something that is produced. So we put subtitles on top of the video. Then we do like different audio tracks because maybe the people in Japan, well, they don't understand German. So we have to translate that stream into a German. We have to optimize the video because if you watch on an iPhone and on an Apple TV, it's not the different definition. So we have to change the stream to make it available for an iPhone and also for an Android and an Apple TV. So it's that, and it's done in the UK. So you start in Germany, then you go in the UK. Then you've got like two different things of like actually distributing the content back in Japan. And here you want to get as close as possible, but sometimes it's not possible. So you are in India, or you are still in Germany, or you go somewhere else. So actually, when someone in Japan is watching a match in Germany, I mean, the stream like goes worldwide a couple of times before reaching back Japan. So it's a really complex architecture, and actually, which makes it also really interesting. Otherwise, I wouldn't be there. You want to do that as effectively as possible, because what is the most hated thing by people when they stream something on YouTube or Netflix or DAZN is that thing. Like, I haven't seen that actually for quite a while now, but I mean, a couple of years ago, I mean, I'm pretty sure every one of us remembered that thing where it was just like waiting a couple of minutes for your stream to start. This is the worst thing ever. Latency. So if I want you to remember one thing as a product manager that is data-oriented, you have to take care, if there's one KPI that you have to take care on your day-to-day basis in the streaming industry, it's the latency. Latency is just the simple idea of how long it takes from the stream from Germany to go to Japan. It's like that difference time between the event and the stream that you actually watch. Cable TVs sometimes can get 15 seconds. Analog is instant. So when you watch a football match on BBC One, so on your TV, like traditional TV, it's almost instant. So it's like there's no lag between when the goal is happening to when you're watching it. However, on streaming, when the stream have to go back in Germany, they have to go in the UK, it has to go in India, it has to go a little bit everywhere. So that comes to a point where you have 25 seconds. Then that's a lot. Because if you are in a pub and you have the Twitter like, oh yeah, goal in the final for France, but you're like this and you're like, yeah, you actually have to wait 25 seconds. I mean, it's almost as the time of a second goal in a football match. So that's a lot. Where we have to get to eventually in streaming is 3 seconds. So that's really technical. And why? It's because the betting feeds. So where people like tend to bet, like on football matches, usually the latency is around 3 seconds. So it's almost instant, really. And that, as a data-driven product manager that we all want to be as much as possible, it's that KPI. Cool. Okay. Any question on the streaming for those who came late, or I'll jump and then, yeah, go ahead, if it's a quick one.
You mentioned the different markets.
Yeah.
And it's actually also competitive to DAZN. For example, there's one industry, I think, say, for example, payments.
Yeah.
Why is that like competitive to DAZN?
Payments.
Yeah, you had a.
Oh yes. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So cool. So so the question is why payment companies are in the market of streaming. Well, first because you have to pay for a streaming service. When you pay for Netflix, it goes through a payment gateway. But also it's really tied to a use case that I will show after. Is in sports in general, people tend to subscribe right before a match. So I'll show you an example of a football match. Typically, if a football match starts at, let's say, 4 p.m., everyone will subscribe at like 3:50. And you have to handle the payment, the acceptance of the payments. You have to say, OK, that user paid for the subscription, and he can watch that match. And you have to do that for millions of users in less than 10 minutes. So so they have to scale up their operations, let's say. Yeah? OK, cool. There will be a time for questions at the end also. So how to launch a streaming app? Oh my God, if you're still crazy enough to want to start to launch your streaming, then let's get into the meat of it. So as a product manager, I always tend to think that the best way is to start from the customers, because it's easy to get lost otherwise. And as a product manager, you can tend to think that you know the answers, where actually you should start with the questions. And the questions, well, the customers are the questions. And the key things as a customer, as a product manager, and try to understand as a customer is like, why do you want to subscribe to a streaming service? So I'll specifically try to focus on the sports streaming, but I'll give other type of examples. But the sports streaming is a really good use case here. So really content-wise, as a customer, I want to watch sport. Then we'll get into afterward. So that kind of is the first question is like, why do you want to watch sport? Are you a fan, etc. The price, you don't want to pay like we used to pay like £50 a month with Sky BT. Like for 12 months, you cannot leave. You can even change your subscription. And you're like, I don't want to pay £50 just for one match. The flexibility and the accessibility. You don't want to pay £50 a month Netflix and only be able to watch Netflix on your iPhone. You want Netflix on all your devices. And I'm sure there are at least 25 different devices on that room right now. So accessibility is an important thing. So let's focus on the content. As a customer, if I want to watch sport, there is this framework that we use at DAZN. It's called the jobs to be done. So I think it's a really useful framework for a product manager, and actually also a really easy one to understand is, as a customer, what are you trying to achieve? So why do you want to watch sport? It can be stupid, so it seems stupid, but it's actually a really strong tool, even internally in your company, when you want to convince your seniors and your top management. It shows that you actually care about your customers, and most of the time, most of the product managers don't actually care, so which is a shame. So why do you want to watch sport as a customer? Well, some of us are sports fan. So, I'm a fan of Espanyol, so it's a team in Barcelona. And, ultimately, the best option for me would be to subscribe to all the matches of Espanyol. I don't really care about PSG or about Chelsea. I want a subscription that allows me to watch Espanyol. So that's for a team fan, sorry. If you're a sports fan, in general, you just love tennis, you love rugby, you love everything. So, you know, you don't really mind. You want everything. You know, all the type of content. Or you're just a social watcher. You know, I'm just going to watch the final of the Champions League with all my friends around. I don't really care about the content itself. I just want a service that works and that offers me the big games. So I don't really care about the semi-final or the quarters. I just want the final. And that we kind of also tailor how you present and your key selling points of your product later on when you define your key selling points and your price points. Also to the users, you can tailor, okay, so if you're a social watcher and you just want the finals, maybe we can have a lower price. We can have a bundle, which is going to be £5 per month instead of 50 per month. In streaming and in sports, but in streaming in general, I think content is the king. It's absolute king. So this is some of the sports stats, but to give you others. So yesterday on YouTube, there were 5 billion views. Today on YouTube, there were 5 billion views. And tomorrow on YouTube, there will be 5 billion views on average. So that's a ratio of about 4.5 videos per user on YouTube every day. So that's just mind-blowing. These guys, they have to handle 5 billion views a day on average. Netflix, 3 years ago, they had about 13,000 different pieces of unique content. Today, they have more than 30,000 different content on Netflix. So that's why you just like sometimes you just browse for like 5 minutes and you just, I don't know what to watch on Netflix. It's just content is the key. And if you watch the conference of Apple a couple of months ago when they announced the big streaming service, they invited on stage like actors, content creators. Everything is around content. Everything. The price point is mainly defined by how much content you're going to offer. You cannot, there is no way you're going to sell a product £50 a month if there is only Game of Thrones. You have to be smart about the content and understand that this is the key thing. Up to a point that I want to show you a video after of DAZN when we launch in a new country. So this is actually when we launch in a new country.
Coming to support my boy. Introduce myself.
There are two things mainly on that video. So as a product manager, I was really critical about that, but it's content and distribution, like 25,000 hours stream, 25 like live stream, etc. And then you have like videos about, you see a guy with an iPhone, with an Apple Watch. This is content and distribution. So the second most important thing in streaming industry is where you're going to distribute. If Netflix is like raising, I think they just announced they're going to raise 2 extra billions to produce Netflix like unique content, and they've already raised 4 billions, I think, last year or something like that. is you want to make sure that your content is distributed everywhere. So I did an exercise last week to find the oldest device where Netflix is supported. And it's actually a device that is older than Netflix itself. So Netflix is distributing their content literally everywhere. Because, well, you've spent $4 billion in creating content. You want to make sure that everyone can see it. So as a product manager, then you have to get into the nitty-gritty of what type of usage you're going to do with your content. So as a commuter, I want to be able to download offline the content and watch the game on my iPhone. Or if you're just what we call a Papa Bear, you just want to have an Apple TV and a cool app on an Apple TV and watch it while eating Uber Eats on the game night. If you're a real sport fan and want to keep up to date, then you want the smartwatch app that tells you when there is a goal or something. But you want to make sure that you are everywhere because, well, your CEO will tell you, well, I just did a check of 4 billion. So I want to make sure everyone can see these 4 billions everywhere. So distribution is the queen. So when content is the king, we all think in the streaming industry that distribution is as important as the queen is. Yeah, as I said, we all are connected worlds, and if there's 7.7 billion people on the planet, 10 billion, I think there's 5 billion mobile phone in the world right now. So you have to make sure that you are everywhere, especially if you're launching in new countries. And this is a really, really, really inspiring slide that I stole from Netflix, actually. But I think all the product managers in our company have that somewhere. So what these slides tells us, actually, and as a product manager, that you have to be really data-oriented, is the use cases are really different. So what tells you here is, let's say, when you sign up, so when you want to subscribe to something, most of the time you will do it on something really easy, like an iPhone or a laptop, and that's more than 50% of all the Netflix users start the journey into the Netflix from these two things. However, when it comes to consuming the content, so watching videos, they are less than 25%. And not surprisingly, where do you watch the content? Well, on your TV. Makes sense, Game of Thrones is just much better on a 4K TV than on a small iPhone screen. Well, it's a no-brainer. But as a product manager, you really have to understand all your journeys and to be able to map it in this way or another. But I mean, you have to understand exactly at what stage, so sign up, viewing, resubscribing, where are your customers more comfortable doing it, and offering, let's say, a better experience on that platform. So a couple of months ago, I think, they're doing it step by step. Netflix completely pulled out the sign-up ability on TV. So they were judging that they could lose 25% on their sign-up on TV because they were going to improve the experience on mobile and on laptop. Much better. They said, it's much better than lose 25% and improve that than keeping 25% because you have maintenance, you have bad customers reviews, etc., etc. And on the other side of the spectrum, Netflix updates almost weekly all their TV apps on Apple TV and Android. They just update and update because they know the viewing experience is much, much more important on the TV. And I don't even recall when is the last time my Netflix app on my iPhone was updated. It's just, because it's just 10% of the viewing. So based on where you are in your journey, you really have to understand what you want to do with your customers. And actually, at DAZN, we have more or less the same type of percentages. We just see sign-up is much better on the mobile, and the viewing is just much better on the TV. That's just how it goes. And the last thing, as a product manager, that you want to look at if you want to launch a streaming service is the price and the flexibility. So with with people coming like Apple Plus or Disney Plus, that definitely puts a lot of pressure on your price points. And we've seen that a lot of players right now are like freaking out, like, we don't know how much Apple TV is going to cost, or I don't know if I have to change my pricing. We also have that with so everyone is kind of waiting for these big guys, but it definitely puts a big pressure on. You have to think about your business model. You don't want to, even if it's tempting as a product manager to say we're going to lock our customers for 12 months or 24 months. This just doesn't cut it anymore. 2018, 2019, you cannot do these like old school things where you lock customers for 12 months, let's say. You have to adapt all your pricing, and also that goes also with the content. Okay. Again, pros and cons of the two biggest business model that you can think in streaming. So the first one is subscription. So you pay your subscription, and that's how Netflix is funded. Or ads is big Audi ads in your streams. Pretty sure everyone hates that. So these two comes with pros and cons. So the big pros of subscriptions is that you own them. You put the price you want. You can A/B test. You can do some tiers like Netflix. You pay less for one screen and you pay more for 4K, etc. It's completely up to you. So you can play around. However, the big con of that, as I'm just summarizing the slide, is it puts a lot of pressure on your price point, because financially speaking, your boss is going to tell you, well, how many new customers we've had, because that's at the end of the month, that's the check he wants to see. So that puts a lot of pressure on the prices that you might want to. Ads, the big pros of ads is that it can be combined with subscription. However, it's not a mind-blowing fact is that everyone hates ads. So even if everyone hates ads, that is undeniably a really lucrative business model. But you really have to be careful when you put that into your UX. You don't want to see your Game of Thrones episode cut in the middle to see a Doritos like ads. Like, I mean, I still hate YouTube for doing ads like before my video. I cannot even think what it could be on Netflix. However, taking that into consideration, a mix tends to be the best, and Netflix is doing ads. You might not even know it, but they are also funded by ads. So there are some videos and some contents that are ads also. They do promote a little bit before launching the video that's like there are ads in this video. So they are slowly, unfortunately, going into the experimenting with adding ads into their videos. It's a shame, but that's how the world works. You want to make money. So yeah, this is really key when you think about your business model of your streaming service. And as a product manager, you have to think at every step of the journey where you can put the ads, the price points if you go with subscriptions. And the tricky thing is, like, sometimes ads can be okay. For example, in DAZN, so we're going to introduce ads. And it's just like people don't actually even notice that we've added ads, because let's say in the football games, you have the two halves. You have the first 45 minutes, then you have 15 minutes, and then you have 45 minutes. But in these 5 minutes, in these 15 minutes between the two halves, well, there's just nothing. So let's put some ads. Why not? So it's not a disruptive experience. And that's fine. But again, if I take the example of cutting the Game of Thrones episode, I'm not sure that could work. KPI. So I've had to get agreement of my bosses to show that, because these are the KPIs I use on a daily basis. So as a product manager, KPIs, well, shopping list, you want to know everything. But really the core ones, device viewership is a no-brainer for all the product managers in the streaming industry. Is you have to know what they watch on. So it's more iPhone, more Apple TV, more Android. It's a no-brainer. You have to know that KPI by heart. The second one is live versus on-demand. So where Netflix is only on-demand, so there is no live film. Maybe that someday that will exist, but I doubt it. DAZN, us, as a sport, it's mostly live. So you want to watch a game that is happening right now. So like completely two different things, and you want to know exactly what are your customers interested in. The repeat traffic, so that's engagement basically. That can be translated in all the industry. Like, are they sticky? How many video do they watch? As I said, like YouTube, like 4.5 per person per day. That's a really good. You have to adapt that to exactly to your type of environment. Duration of use. So if a football game is 90 minutes, I want to know exactly how long my customers are gonna stay. If they drop at 50 minutes, well, that's kind of a bad sign. Or maybe the football match is crappy, but that's out of my control. I want to make sure that they stay at least 90 minutes. One, for them to see all the ads that I want to show them, but also because the longer they stay within my product, the better. And the quality. So I've given you the example of the latency on a YouTube video. This is really key. You have to understand how good was the quality, and this is a really, really cool example of how marketing can be crappy sometimes. Is right now everyone wants to see 4K. Yeah, 4K football match, 4K videos, etc. Actually, I've done a lot of user research, and especially in sports, and sometimes also on like normal films, users don't actually see the difference between like a normal stream, like a 720p, like this quality, and a 4K stream, because you just don't know. It's mostly marketing. So you want to take that into consideration, and because a 4K stream is much more expensive than a middle range HD rate. So, you know, at the end of the month, if you can save a couple of millions to your company, that's a big difference. So that's a really big thing to look into. So some really cool stuff that I'm going to show you now. These are based on my failures or successes, well, mostly failures. When we launched in Italy for DAZN, so it was a couple of months ago. So this graph is how the distribution of a football match that starts at 4 p.m. in Italy, the distribution of users that comes and connects to my platform. So as you can see, all the users start to connect at 3:50, so like 10 minutes before the match. And then goes up. And then, so here, somewhere around here, you have like the half, so the 15 minutes break. They just leave, you know, have a coffee, and then they come back. But not all of them come back, but they do come back, and then at the end, they just leave. We didn't know about that. So happens a couple of times that so our platform went down because we were not expecting so many people to connect, like literally 10 minutes. I don't know, I was like, you know, yeah, people are going to come like half an hour ago, 1 hour before. But everyone connected 10 minutes ago and our platform went down. So you cannot imagine like on the Twitter, like, you're down 10 minutes before the match and then you have to call your boss. How can you explain that? And there are many ways to solve that. It's like as soon as you understand that graph, then what we did, you can send notifications to, as an example, you can send notifications to all your iPhone users to say the match is about to start in 30 minutes, please connect. So you can like send incentives like way before the match to, let's say, instead of being like that, a graph that goes like this, like scale up a little bit that window of connection, so your servers don't go down and you don't lose your job. So that's a real use case of when we launched in Italy, and that was a like unexpected thing. Yeah.
What is the difference between if they join half an hour early and then 10 minutes earlier? I mean, still you have to stream to all these people.
Yeah, for sure. The problem in this graph is the spike.
Okay.
Is because when you connect, you make different calls to different services, to say Salesforce or your own platform. And if they are scaled, let's say between half an hour, you have 1 million, 1 million, 1 million, then your platform, and so at least our platform was ready for that kind of spike. But we were not ready for like 10 million connections at the same time. So I'm exaggerating a little bit the figures, but the idea is that you have to avoid spikes. On any service, it happens like most of the time when the big services go down, it's because of spikes. Before, so after, once they're connected, it's fine, you can stream it. And your infrastructure needs to be ready for that, of course. But you avoid the big spike.
I would presume then that some parts of your platform have bottlenecks.
Yes, unfortunately.
But that's the reason.
Yes, exactly. Well, and you have to know them.
Okay.
And how do you know them? Is well, you fail. We didn't know that before. Exactly. So, well, it's product managers. It's kind of a sales product, a sales position. You have to fail and like try again. Not much you can do about it, really. But that happens one time, and hopefully it won't happen again. So now we have notifications. There are ways of avoiding that. And another example of our Italy launch is like sometimes things are out of your control. Oh yeah, it's cut. So Italy's internet is 30% slower than Germany. That's a fact, and there is not much you can do. So we learned that because, oh yeah, it's really cut. Okay. When we first launched in Italy, we were not expecting that. And we just like, we didn't see, but when that first match happened, we actually broke Italians' internet. So like all the CDNs, all the CDNs in Italy were saturated. So basically, you couldn't access internet that day, or these 10 minutes, because we just broke it, and because the infrastructure wasn't ready to cope for us, and because their internet is slower also. So it's like a kind of infrastructure. That's why I said like technology and politics. That's why they are getting into it, because they see that streaming is just so big that they need to update the infrastructure. So that's also, one of the big learnings of our launch in Italy is that you have to understand. So what you can do about that? Well, instead of sending 4K streams, that takes a lot of your bandwidth, we just compress a little bit more the video. So less quality, but at least you see something. So that's an example. And there are other things you can do, but this is one on top of my head. Any questions about these two use cases, or if you want to launch a streaming, then you have a burning question right now? Yeah.
There's one question on, so you compress the video more.
Yes.
You communicate that to customers and say, this is the problem.
Really good question. So when we do compress, to recap, if we do compress the video quality to avoid breaking internet. Basically in the streaming industry, there is this standard that's called adaptive streaming. So basically the streaming quality adapts to your bandwidth. So if you're in 4G, you go straight to HD stream. But if you are in 3G, then somehow, magically, I don't know how it works, but we see that you have a lower speed, and we start with the lower quality. So you see pixels video, and step by step, the video quality will get better. So that's kind of a standard in the streaming industry. It's adaptive. So we don't necessarily need to communicate that, because it's kind of accepted behavior. I'm pretty sure all of you have already experienced that when you launch a Netflix stream. At the start, it's like, oh, it's a bit blurry. And then suddenly it gets better. That's because we have time to load more images, and then we can ramp up the quality. So we don't necessarily have to. What we have to is when we throttle on purpose the quality. So on our app, for example, when we launched the app, in order to avoid users to eat up all their data, we capped the quality of a video. Because I'm not sure if you've ever watched on your iPhone or your Android phone how much video streaming takes up of your, let's say, 10 gigs monthly data allowance. or Instagram, I think you cannot actually see the specific, but like Instagram or Facebook, these two apps will take, or if you add YouTube, these two apps, I'm pretty sure to bet you that they take more than 90% of all your data allowance. And the good thing, the good use case is to allow users to say, you know, I want HD, I want low quality stream because, you know, I don't care if it's a HD or HD.
So the streaming service needs two parts, obviously, the providers giving you stream with their matches and customers. Now, does marketing launch into that determined by what licenses you're able to get? Or do you base it on the demand of people wanting to use your product and then use it as leverage for these other providers to sign up with you?
I'm not sure I understand the question. If,
so
yeah.
for instance, you're not in the UK at the moment.
No.
Why is that?
Why we're not in the UK?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not sure it's a question I can answer. Well, sports streaming is a really interesting business because so you, the first thing is you need the content, as I said, and the content is really expensive. Do you know how much Premier League costs? Premier League rights costs? Millions. You're missing a couple of zeros. No, it's billions. And just for a couple of matches. It's not even the entire league. So you have to buy the rights to be able to broadcast them. And that's kind of the key thing when you want to start in a new country. So eventually we'll come in the UK, but first you have to buy the rights. And these rights, they're just in one country. So when you buy, let's say, Premier League rights in the UK, then you have to buy them in Germany, then you have to buy them in France and Spain, in Germany, in Japan, in the US. So you need the money. You need serious money to go in new countries. And imagine, would you subscribe to a sports streaming service in the UK that does only cricket? Maybe you're a cricket fan, sure. But I mean, reality is like if you want to launch in the UK, you need football, soccer. You need soccer. There is no way you can launch in the UK without soccer. That's the reality. So we launched in Spain a couple of 1 month ago, and we went for the biggest sport in Spain, which is MotoGP, because their guys is like the worldwide champion. Everyone in Spain is MotoGP. Eventually, we'll add more and more sports. So we had like a different approach with Italy, where in Italy we had all the rights. In Spain, we start with the biggest rights. So it's kind of like a different approach. We want to see how it goes. But also that dictates the rights you have, because here in the UK, I think BT and Sky, they own the Premier League rights for like 5 years. So it's not that you can do anything about it. Yeah, but obviously the bigger you grow, the bigger you can convince the others to partner with you. So when we launched in the US earlier this year, where we were already really, really big, so it was easier to negotiate rights with the rights holders. Some of the best practices we do in DAZN. So I said streaming, but I wanted to focus on what we do at DAZN. So we have what we call PR FAQs. I first hated that when I joined DAZN because it is really complicated, but that's the best thing that happened to me in my career, actually. So PR FAQs is, do you guys know what a PR FAQ is? Yeah? You work at Amazon?
I used to work.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I think these guys invented that brain-twisted exercise, but it's really cool. So to put it simply, it's you start from the customers and you try to understand why you're building the stuff you're about to build, even before building it. So it's really complicated because there are a lot of unknowns, because you don't actually really know what you're going to launch, but you ask the big questions right now. So from day one, you go as a product manager and you ask the tough questions, like how much is it going to cost? Who are going to be my customers? What are going to be the technical challenges, etc., etc. So this is a plain Word document, like 6, 7 pages, that you distribute in your whole company. And that's like, if you work with developers, they call it PR reviews. It's like you have a code, and then all the other developers watch your code, and they basically criticize and say, oh, this is not good, and like, why did you do that, etc. That's the same exercise as a product manager. You share it with your boss, with your colleagues, with everyone in the company, and they can actually come and comment about what your ideas, and they're going to challenge you. And this is a really good exercise, because most of the time as a product manager, the hard question, you put them on the side and say, I'm still going to launch my product. I'm sure it's going to work. All these questions, it's just like, you just put everything on the side. But that actually forces you to challenge yourself beforehand. And that's really good. I still hate it, but it is really good, and it's really efficient. And last point about PR FAQs and what I found, and it actually gets the buy-in from all the senior stakeholders. So if you want to sell a project to your boss tomorrow, do a PR FAQ. That works 100% of the time, because they're going to see everyone in the company was involved, and that you answered all the questions, and that everyone knows around you that, oh, this is the big project, and this is coming. Everyone, you're not going to have like last-minute thing about your PR guy. Oh, by the way, can we do that? Basically changing the whole scope of your project. That's not going to happen with a PR FAQ, because it's written in stone in the documents.
So
yeah.
So you do all like the requirements gathering with customers, get all the customer
yeah.
data, research, etc. Then you kind of basically put it in a document just to get the whole buy-in from the company first.
Yeah.
It's like an internal press release.
Yes.
That's the best way to say it.
It's yeah.
But what's the problem there then? Your CEO goes, no, I want you to do this, and like, well, because you still get that sometimes, even if you've got.
Yeah, you're still going to get that, but most probably that your CEO will see that 100% actually commented on your thing, and if the project you're going to sell makes sense, yeah. I'm pretty sure the CEO is not going to say no to 100, like if everyone has been involved in your project. Because the CFO will be also involved, and the CTO will also tell you, okay, so technically speaking, it's done. CFO will say, financially speaking, it's done. Then you basically get the buy-in from everyone. It's a smarter way of doing it instead of like trying to convince them with 101s or like workshops of things that don't really work. But yeah, that's good. Yeah, you have to go first with your customers.
Great. How long does it take to do the PR?
Phew. It depends on the project. So I wrote, since I joined, I think I wrote about 6. It's a month work. Yeah, from the day you have the idea. So obviously you're not going to do a PR FAQ if you want to do an A/B test, or like change the color of a button from green to yellow. I mean, this is not what this is for. Actually, A/B test can support your PR FAQ. If you have like a big idea, you want to increase your price, then maybe you can do an A/B test and put that into your FAQ. So when I say 1 month, is from say, okay, I have an idea, to I get the sign off of everyone in the company to get the thing rolled out. So this is a tool. So I've worked in like growing startups. I'm not sure that tool will actually work in a small and really growing and fast moving startup, though I'm pretty sure you can take the idea of a PR FAQ and make a smaller one. Like you don't need so the big one I've done was probably 25 pages. Like you're not going to write 25 pages every week. If it's a small project, take the idea of a PR FAQ to a 1 or 2 pager, share it with your company, and I think that's, to me, I think it's it was the best thing I've seen as a product manager.
Can you once again iterate what it consists of? So you basically summary of your product and then the questions.
Yeah, sure. So a PR FAQ usually is structured in like two big different sections. The first one is an external FAQ. Is you write the document as if you were selling it to the Sun or to the medias. So why do you want to do it? What are going to be the features of your feature? What is going to be the price? You write it in a journalistic almost manner. And then the second part, which is the internal FAQ, where you're going to address technical questions, like how is it going to work? How is it going to cost? What are the technical complexities, et cetera, et cetera. So you split these two things.
But you give the answers.
No, so you're just a product manager. So as a product manager, your role is not to come up with the answers, it's to come up with the questions, which is the most complicated thing. Is you need to get the right questions. It's like, as a product manager, okay, so what could be the question? It's like, how is my new product going to technically work? That's the first question. So you go to your CTO and say, okay, so this is the new project. Have a half an hour workshop. How is it going to work? And he's the expert. As a product manager, you're not supposed to come up with the whole architecture of a new project. He is the one. You involve him. You bring him with you. It's like, okay, this is the answer. And then the next question. What is going to be the price of my new feature? Then you go to your CFO or to a finance guy and say, okay, how much can it be? So you involve him, so you bring him also at the same time. He writes the answer. You're just, let's say, the judge or the editor. You are the editor of the PR FAQ,
right,
kind of.
All the divisions of the company answer all the questions, or just a selection of?
Well, you have to facilitate the work. You have to give your first thoughts. You say, I think it should be like that. I think it should be like that. And then you kind of confirm it with the other people in the company. Because, yeah, you cannot expect your CTO or everyone in the company to write it for you. You have to be the one that kind of initiates. So you give guidelines. You say, based on the data, based on the customer's feedback, it should be like that. So, can you confirm it, or do you think it's different?
You give hints.
Exactly, yeah. Give hints. Another really good practice as a product manager is you don't really, so you have to go to the next stage. It's like you have to become your own customers. So there are a lot of like talks, you have to know your customers, etc., etc. You really have to become one. So at DAZN, we have that kind of like roadmap or like map of all our customers on top of all of our desk. And we all are kind of one. So I'm probably so far super fan. And the thing is, once you really get this personas on your mindset, it's way easier when you write your PR FAQ to know for which people you're doing this feature. This is kind of really a basic for product manager, but this is like really important because you always have to remember that you're doing it for the customers. And when you're actually one of them, it's even funnier because you're doing it for yourself, because you're like, oh yeah, that feature is really cool, because you're a super fan, and I love to watch my big games when I'm waiting for my Uber Eats. It could be something actually. We are data freaks, so we work with massive. Data is everywhere in our day-to-day. So we use a lot of tools. And here, if there is one takeaway of here, I'm sure you've seen like different slides that tell you a product manager, you have to be data-oriented, etc., etc., is that it doesn't really matter what you use. You can use whatever you want. At the end of the day, what matters is like you have to know everything about your customers, whether it's through qualitative, quantitative, etc. Is that you have to get that data mindset that everything you do needs to be supported with data, even more with a PR FAQ, because you shoot yourself in the foot if you write a PR FAQ without any data points. You cannot say, I think I'm going to launch that, because it's going to work. There's no way. So do A/B tests. Do use data. There is no better way to get the buy-in for a PR FAQ. And remain social. So that is really important. So especially in DAZN, in a company that is growing so fast. I don't even know how fast we've grown since I've joined in 2 years. It's really important to actually stay social, because my teams, I've got teams now in Amsterdam, I've got teams in Poland, and I've got I'm working with Japanese people and in the US. Even though I'm flying there all the time, we try to find as many events as possible to come together, go to events around the world. And I think it's really important because like Skype just don't cut it sometimes. You have to know the people with who you're working. So if it's a big expense, I'm fighting constantly with my boss is you need to spend money on that. You have to be social because especially as a product manager, developers are going to challenge you. Like, I don't like that feature, or oh no, it's going to take too long, or etc., etc. If you get to know them, you can get everything from them. So this is really, really, really important, especially as you grow and you kind of lose touch with your developers. This is like product management 101, but this is really important. And I'm glad to say that at DAZN, even if we grow so much, I'm flying literally once every 2 or 3 weeks somewhere in one of these countries to like meet my developers, customers, designers, whoever they are in the company. Cool. I think that's it for me. Are there any questions about DAZN, about streaming, about anything? People, you guys still want to launch your streaming app?
How are you guys, thanks for your presentation, how are you
Sure.
guys internally in terms of product owners and do you have someone owning the pricing and someone owning the user experience? How are you guys?
Like tribes on Spotify, you know. We've got so verticals and horizontals. So I'm product manager of some devices. So I own a set of devices because in streaming, you really have to know where you distribute your content. So what's most important is to know, everything about your products. And we've got so much stuff. You an iPhone, an Android, a TV, a laptop, an iPad, an Android tablet. This is just this thing. But when you think about the TVs, then you have like 10,000 Sharps, you've got 10,000 Samsung, 10,000 Sonys, 10,000. It's just like, it just explodes in numbers. So we've got these product managers of like, let's say, device sets. And then we've got horizontals where product managers are specialized in content discovery. So how do we expose our content, whatever the like device agnostic way? So how do we improve search? How do we improve pricing? So this is a cross-platform. So we've got like these like grid of product managers, and then we have like head of product managers that sit on top and that look over different areas like playback, like pricing, or etc., etc.
Like a platform and channels.
Very much so. Yeah. Yeah. I think so Netflix is set up in a really similar way, and I think it just makes sense in the streaming industry where you have to get to know your platforms, and there are just so many of them. There is no way you can cut it in like tribes. You can have a mix, I guess, and that's what we try to do, I guess, with like tribes of people that's like in Spotify way, where they look at monetization, etc., etc. So maybe eventually we'll move to a setup that is more like a Spotify thing. But eventually, I'm pretty sure we'll have to keep the verticals of like experts like me that I really know how a TV works, and I really know how an Apple TV works or an iPhone works. Because yeah, you want to make sure that your customers get the best video ever.
And when you develop, do you have all kind of these devices at your locations?
Yeah. Yeah, we have a secret room. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, you have to. You have to. There is no way you can develop something without touching it on a day-to-day basis as a product manager. I think, yeah, at home I have like one Apple TV, like I don't know how many Rokus, I don't know how, no, I just have one TV. My girlfriend's gonna kill me. But yeah, I've got so much stuff. So yeah, and in the office also, all the product managers have like at home and also in the office, and the QAs. So we've got a room full of TVs. So the thing is that it costs a lot of money, and like sometimes you don't need the 50 different Sharp TV model to test something. You can like have a couple of them because the models are more or less the same. Let's say the characteristics, 4K, HDMI cable, etc., etc. So you can try to automate as much as possible. So you can automate tests on an iPhone. It's really easy to automate all your features. But on a TV, it's way harder to automate things when it comes to QA. So yeah, as much as possible, we try to have every type of model that we can.
A lot of job.
Huh?
A lot of job.
Yeah.
How can you, like, it sounds like a lot of different sections, kind of, for different channels, but in different areas. How do you balance like the kind of like A/B testing or like the testing things? Because obviously, I bet you've got like a lot of different teams who want to do a lot of tests, and then it's like, well, they're all going to be kind of impacting each other. How do you run your testing environment?
Yeah. Okay. So, that's good. So the way we approach A/B tests at DAZN. So I'm going to narrow it to DAZN. Yeah. Because A/B testing in the streaming industry is so much different. So it's far, like years different from what I was doing in Asimo in the fintech industry, where you can A/B test literally everything. So we usually start by A/B testing on specific platforms where it's easy to A/B test, like mobile or web. The way we do things is we ideate as much as possible on the thing we want to test, the theory, and we test it on a couple of platforms. So let's say Android, web, and iPhone. We examine whether this is a success or not, and then we bring it to other platforms. Because the development phases on iPhone is quick. We can release stuff like every week, every 2 weeks, but you cannot release new things on TV every other weeks. So how many of you have an Apple TV in here? Okay, bad question. Okay. So how many have a smart TV? Oh, yes, it's got a lot. When is the last time you updated an app? Never. So yeah, so that it's a completely different. So I'm not saying you can have development phases of 1 year because, well, anyway, no one's going to update it. So it's not good practice. But reality is the development cycles on TV are much, much, much longer than on mobile. So you can do quick A/B tests on these easy platforms and then bring them in on your TV. Another really big problem on A/B tests when it comes to TVs is like it's really hard to A/B test because you've got so many different sizes of TVs, you've got so many different screen resolutions, everything, and the use cases on TV are completely different than mobile. So when we do A/B test, let's say sign up on an iPhone is completely different than signing up on a TV. I'm pretty sure none of you ever sign up to anything on a TV because it's just so terrible. It's complicated because, try to type your whole name with a remote that's from the 80s. It's really complex. So A/B testing on TV is much more complicated. It's doable though, because A/B test is just splitting the traffic, so you can do it. But you have to be smart about what you test on TVs, really. So what we do is test on mobile and bring it home on TV.
You guys really think about 5G quite a lot, and that's the next kind of big wave of technological revolution open up.
Yeah, I mean everyone is thinking about 5G, even if right now it's more of a lie more than anything else because it isn't really 5G. But yeah, eventually when 5G hits, so I think Poland is actually will be one of the first markets to have 5G. But it will eventually impact only a small portion. I mean, a big portion of our users because 5G is a mobile thing. So let's say all our TV users, well, you don't. Except users that have 5G at home with a dongle. So yeah, that's a really good use case. So yeah, we think about it, but it's more like we're waiting to see what the 5G is going to bring us. So we know, as a matter of fact, that will be it will probably allow us to have less compression and have a better image quality. We can work on lowering the latency. So yeah, we're looking at it, but there are so many different ways to improve the customer experience right now without waiting for the 5G. Because what 5G will bring is more speed. Okay, great, cool. So maybe there are things that we can do right now by improving the compression algorithm right now and do something and without waiting for 5G and for the technology to be up to date. So yeah, waiting to see. Wait and see, I guess, for now.